Hello, I'm Naching Kassa, and today I'll be reading to you from this wonderful book, Arterial Bloom, edited by Mercedes M. Yardley and published by Crystal Lake Publishing. It includes my story, The Darker Side of Grief. The shadow passed over George Morrison like a dark spirit in search of a tomb. He glanced up into the pale blue sky and caught sight of a hawk's wings. The bird soared above the field beside the dirt road and hovered, wings flapping, above the grass. George squinted at it through his sore and puffy left eye. "Hey, can you hear me?" Rory Frank said. George tore his gaze away from the bird. "No, sorry." "What is it with you these days? It's like you live in a dream world or something." "I haven't slept much lately." "What did you say?" Rory had readjusted his grip on the thick math book under his arm. His face grew white beneath the freckles. "You do not want Carla Running Deer as a babysitter." "Why not?" "She beats people up. Did you hear what she did at the dance last Friday?" George shook his head. "Paul Graham asked her to dance, and she threw him through a window." "How do you know that? You weren't there. You're only 11." "My cousin was there. He saw it. She did other things, too." George turned back to the hawk. It dived into the tall grass and vanished among the green. Seconds later it reappeared with a small, writhing creature in its talons. The snake struck at the bird's wings as the bird's wings lifted them both into the air. "What things?" "Last summer she stabbed a guy." "Who told you that? Your cousin?" "No, I overheard my sister tell one of her friends. He walked by Carla while she was lying on the sand, and she stabbed him in the leg." "Who was the guy?" "I don't know. My sister didn't know him." "Did your sister see it happen?" "No, Maggie told Jennifer, and Jennifer told her." "Did the cops arrest Carla?" "No, but I know it happened. She's dangerous. You should tell your dad you don't want her as a babysitter." A small blue ranch-style house rose up on the left as they walked down the dirt road. George stopped in the mouth of its driveway while Rory opened the black mailbox on the other side. "I don't think she'll hurt me," George said. "What makes you so special?" "This." He pointed to his eye. "Your shiner? Somehow I don't think it'll matter." A woman stepped out on the front porch then. When her eyes fell on George, she re-entered the house. "I'd let you in, but my mom wouldn't like it," the freckled boy said, pulling white envelopes from the box. "Mom says she doesn't know what to say to you since your mom croaked." Rory covered his mouth with one hand. His face grew red as his hair. "Sorry." "It's okay," George said. "Please don't be mad." "I'm not." "You sure?" "I have to get home. I'll see you tomorrow." "See ya." Rory turned toward the house. "Rory?" "Yeah?" "It's nothing. Bye." "Bye." George hurried away. When he glanced back, Rory had disappeared. He slowed to a shuffle. The sun hung bright above him, hours from descent. He checked his watch. Dad would head to work soon. Mindy would be waking from her nap. The road stretched before him, leading him away from the fields and into the trees. He entered the shade cast by tall pines, their branches thick with emerald needles. The sun played hide and seek between them as he walked. A hush grew as he traveled on, and though he wanted to quicken his pace, he did not. Something moved behind him, and the leaves whispered in its wake. He didn't turn. "George," a soft, melodic voice said. A chill prickled his skin and climbed over his scalp. A patch of sunlight lay ahead, piercing the gloom which surrounded him. He made for the spot. "I want to talk," the voice continued. "I won't hurt you. I would never hurt you." He stepped in the sunlight and bathed his skin in the heat. From the corner of his eye he saw a shadow flit among the trees. He halted. "I can't do it," he said, lowering his eyes. "I can't let you in." "Don't you love me any more?" His vision blurred and his heart ached, but he didn't answer. "You're just like your little sister. You've shut me out." "No, I—" The shadow had crept close to the edge of the road. He could almost make out her face. An engine sounded behind him, breaking the spell the shade had cast. George blinked, and the woman melted in the forest. He moved to the side of the road and looked over his shoulder. A Mustang, trailed by dust, sped toward him. George's heart pounded in his chest. He could still feel the shade's eyes upon him. The car slowed as it neared him and rolled to a stop. A girl of 16 sat behind the wheel. Black hair framed her unpainted face, and small diamond studs glimmered in her earlobes. Dark glasses hid her eyes and reflected his face. The passenger side window hummed as it opened. The girl raised a hand in greeting, revealing the illustrated snake which wound about her arm, its tail disappearing into the sleeve of her pink t-shirt. A small pink dream catcher hung from her rear-view mirror. The white feathers stirred in the breeze. "Hello," she said. Her voice was high and feminine, nothing like he imagined it would be. "Hi." "You're George Morrison." He raised an eyebrow. "You know me?" "I have a bunch of brothers and sisters. One of them is in the class after you." "What's his name?" "Alex." "I know him. He's small, but smart. People pick on him." "He says you're brave, but you bite off more than you can chew. Nice of you to stick up for him." George shrugged. "How's your eye?" "Oh, it doesn't hurt any more." "Good." She lowered the sunglasses. Dark eyes stared into his. "I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Carla." A smile curved her lips. "Would you like a ride?" "I'm not far from home." "And I'm not the type who picks up young men." Across the road, the leaves of a wild rose bush swayed. George glimpsed a pale face with a gash for a mouth. "What is it?" Carla asked. She followed his gaze. "I'll ride with you," George said, pulling her focus back to his face. He opened the door and climbed inside. Vanilla wafted over him as he closed the door. "Buckle up," the girl said. She wore denim shorts. George glanced at her long legs and quickly looked away. Carla didn't seem to notice. She repositioned her sunglasses, shifted into drive, and stepped on the gas. The car surged forward. "My house is past these trees. The driveway's on the right," George said. "Mm-hmm," the girl replied. She leaned forward and turned a knob on the dash. The rich wail of an electric guitar filled the air, and John Bon Jovi's voice joined in it. "Blaze of Glory." "What?" Carla turned the music down. "What did you say?" "Just repeating the song." "Oh, it's the way he wants to die. He wants to go down fighting." "How old are you again?" 10. "You're awful serious." "I have to be." Carla pulled in the driveway and parked next to the Ford pickup which stood outside the garage. George opened the door and stepped out. The one-story home, once a cherry yellow, had suddenly become drab. Paint peeled off the shutters and weeds grew tangled over the lawn. A cracked window faced the drive. George sighed. The screen door creaked open. His father, Harley, stepped out. He'd been tall once. George remembered him as a broad-shouldered man with a hearty laugh. The last 3 months had robbed him of these things. He'd become a living denizen of the grave. Carla removed her glasses and tossed them into the seat. As Harley approached, she held out her hand. "Hello, Mr. Morrison. Sorry I'm late." Harley took the offered hand, held it loose, and released it. "You got here just in time, Carla. I'm about to leave." "But you don't have to be at work until 4, George said. "It's 3:30. "They called me in early," Harley replied. He rubbed his unshaven chin with one hand, his eyes on the truck. "There are TV dinners in the freezer, Carla. I may be late getting back from my shift, but I'll pay you when I get home." "All right, Mr. Morrison." "George will show you around. He can tell you what you need to do." Harley's haunted eyes turned to the drive. "I have to go." He brushed by George on the way to his pickup. Within seconds, he'd brought the engine to life. He pulled out of the driveway and down the road. "Bye, Dad," George said. He turned to Carla and found her staring at him. He lowered his eyes and steeled himself for the question which didn't come. "Your sister is Mindy, right?" Carla said. "Yes." "Can I meet her?" He shrugged. "I suppose so. She won't say much, though." He led Carla to the screen door. When they entered, they found 4-year-old Mindy seated on the floor in front of the TV. A cartoon cat chased a mouse across the screen. He caught it and shoved it into his mouth. Clothes lay scattered across the furniture and the floor, along with several beer cans. Everything seemed tattered and filthy. George's face grew hot. He called his sister, but the little girl didn't look up when they entered. Carla knelt beside her. "Hello, Mindy. I'm Carla." The 4-year-old yawned, her eyes on the screen. "All she does is watch TV now," George said. "She doesn't talk much." "We'll see." Carla said. She rose to her feet. Do you have homework? No. Where's the kitchen? George led her through the door on the right. Something scampered across the floor when he switched the light on. Dirty dishes filled the sink, covered the counter and the table. Flies buzzed about the garbage can, which was full of TV dinner packaging. A melange of mold and rotten meat also wafted from the can. Help me clean up, Carla said. Then we'll have dinner. They set to work. It took over 3 hours to clean the kitchen and the living room. By the time they finished, darkness had fallen. Somehow Carla had coaxed Mindy into the kitchen. She sat with her brother at the table as the 16-year-old served them. Chicken nuggets, French fries, and corn lay upon their plastic plates. Are you going to eat? George asked. No, Carla said. She peered out the window in the black and then closed the blinds. You need it more than I do. He took a bite of chicken and set it on his plate. How long has your mom been gone? Carla asked, facing him. The question stole his tongue. No one ever asked. June, he said at last. 3 months? He nodded. My grandmother passed on last fall, almost a year ago. It's all right to be sad. Don't let anyone tell you different. George stared at her. No one had ever said that before. Carla came to the table and sat across from him. If you want to cry, do it. If you're angry, show it. Don't keep it inside. Is that what you do? It's what I try to do. Is that why you threw the guy through the window? An odd expression passed over her face, almost as though she were laughing on the inside. That may have been part of the reason, she replied. The other part had to do with his hands. He put them where they don't belong. George's eyes widened. I thought it was a story. I didn't know you really did it. My dad was in the army. He taught me judo. Did he teach you how to use a knife, too? This time the grin broke over her face. No, I've never stabbed anyone, not even on a beach. Oh, George said. His face grew prickly and hot. You sound disappointed. No, I know. I suppose you've heard a lot about me. Some. Everybody has. I'm surprised your dad allowed me to sit for you. He doesn't care. Has he always been like that? No, not until Mom got sick. How do you feel about your mom? George swallowed. The world leapt to his mind and flashed before his eyes, but he wouldn't allow himself to speak it. A second later, someone else did. I'm scared, Mindy said. They both turned to look at her. The little girl looked up at Carla, eyes shining. She slipped out of her chair and walked around the table and then climbed into her lap. Carla wrapped her arms around her. I won't let anything hurt you. Minnie nestled against her. Within seconds, she had fallen asleep. That's a first, George said. What? She usually sleeps in front of the TV. Do you sleep? He shook his head. I thought so. Tonight you both will. George took another bite of the chicken. The nugget had lost all flavor. After dinner, he led Carla to Mindy's room. She set the little girl on the bed and covered her with a comforter. You're good with her, George said. Like I said, lots of brothers and sisters. Do you protect them? Sometimes. She ushered him from the room. They crossed the hall and entered his bedroom. Posters of various action stars adorned the walls. Clothes and toys littered the floor. It looked as though a tornado had touched down at the center of the room. George snatched up a pair of underwear and stuffed them into the hamper near his desk. Carla didn't comment on the state of the room. She avoided the obstacles on the floor and made her way toward the cracked window near the small twin bed. She drew the curtains, then turned her attention to the floor. George joined her. Within minutes, they had created a path through the room. Could you stay? George asked as Carla picked a baseball bat up off the floor. She leaned it against the wall near the door jamb and then looked up. I have to lock the door. I'll be back soon. When she left the room, George struggled into his pajamas and hurried to the bathroom to brush his teeth. When he returned, he found her seated on the end of the bed. She rose when he entered. Get into bed, she said. He obeyed, and she tucked the comforter up to his chin. Are you afraid to die? He asked. He didn't know where the question had come from. Yes, she replied. You don't act scared. I hide it well. Are you scared? I can't be scared. Who told you that? Nobody. If I were scared, I couldn't help Mindy. I couldn't do the things I need to do. Outside, a night bird screeched. Carla rose and crossed to the window. Lifting the curtain, she peered through it. My brother was right about you. she said. "You do bite off more than you can chew." If you'd like to read more of the story, and you can see it here in Arterial Bloom, I hope you enjoyed the reading. Thank you. Have a great day.